Welcome everybody to Circle Back to You with my main man Asif Ali. How you doing, brother?
All right, brother, I'm doing great. You see the background behind me, courtesy of yours truly. Oh, man, it is a great Wednesday to be a 49ers fan.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, man, we haven't been on for a few weeks here, and granted, it's understandable. Given the Falcons situation, you know,
Yeah.
we've been through a lot of changes over the past few weeks, and we'll get into that later. But let's talk about the 49ers.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Eagles fly on the road to mediocrity. That was the game of the year. That was the blowout of the year. That was the statement made of the season for the 49ers, obviously going into Lincoln Financial Field. They were favored by 3.5 points, but no one could have predicted the 49ers, not even the 49ers faithful. If you go on Reddit forums, you go on the 49ers web zone, you go on X, you go on Instagram. No one expected the Niners to basically, put on that kind of a beat down on the Eagles. But the players believed in themselves, the coaches did. Obviously all the players dressed in all black prior to the game. Debo, Trent, Fred Warner, Christian McCaffrey, they all felt it from last year's game. And obviously, the talking heads this week, it's good we spent a few days before we hopped on here because I got to collect, all the reactions, right, from all the talking heads, from the Stephen A. Smiths, from the Skip Baylesses, from all like the main players, and everyone's basically saying the same thing that the Niners are the team to beat in the NFL, right? I want to also say that another kind of narrative of the Eagles. I don't agree with Stephen A. Smith because Stephen A. Smith made this point that it delegitimized the Eagles as NFC champions. I don't necessarily agree with that because even though the Niners should have beaten them if Brock Purdy stayed healthy last year, in my opinion. The Eagles still, I mean, they had a historic year last year. They put up 70 sacks, on the season last year, third most in NFL history by any team. They went into the Super Bowl. They lost by 3 points against Kansas City, who's a dynasty so far of this decade. So, I mean, ultimately, the Eagles, I'm not going to say that they were undeserving NFC champions, but, that's how the cookie crumbles of football, right? I mean, essentially, injuries happen, next man up. The 49ers had the injury bug misfortune last year where they have to kind of rotate four quarterbacks to play, in an NFC championship game who basically were otherwise unprepared. And so, sometimes, bad luck befalls teams. Some teams have the fortune of staying healthy, and you can even see it in Kansas City now, how much they're struggling without, a number one legitimate, a wide receiver, or I guess number one kind of pass catcher outside of Travis Kelce. The Niners, obviously, Brock Purdy is basically now number one in the MVP vote. A lot of, talking heads are, on both sides of the coin for that. Obviously Christian McCaffrey, leading rushing. I mean, what can we say about Deebo Samuels, right? I mean, Deebo Samuel is just one of the guys who basically makes or breaks a team. He is that physical and that versatile as a playmaker with the ball in his hands, either catching passes or coming out of the backfield. I mean, he calls himself a wide back, and it's just remarkable how difficult it is to basically game plan and scheme for an offense with a healthy Deebo Samuel and a healthy Trent Williams, on the offensive line. It basically makes it so teams have to, you have to tackle Deebo in space. And if you can't tackle Deebo in space, and it's very hard for teams to actually practice tackling in space, I can speak from my personal experience, and I'm sure anyone else who's played at any level, can speak about that. It's tackling in space is the most difficult kind of task for any defender, or any special teamer or what have you, because of the fact that, there's so many different angles that you can take, and obviously someone coming downhill versus someone coming uphill, and, making sure that you get at the right angle, making sure that, you maintain, that lane integrity, and obviously the moves that can be made from a versatile playmaker like let's say a Bijan Robinson or a Deebo Samuel, right? It's very difficult to scheme for. So obviously, in my opinion, Niners are where they need to be. They are the number one team in the NFL. I am very confident that they will continue this role, this trend throughout the end of the season. And we're going to talk about, and I think we talked about the Niners Dallas game, when the Cowboys, that was our last podcast before we got back on today. Niners obviously has proven against both the top two NFC teams that the Eagles and the Cowboys, they beat them by a margin of 84-29. So if those are top three teams in the NFC, who they are for many people, the Cowboys, Eagles, and Niners, I mean, it's clear who the cream of the crop is. So that's what we have to say about the red and gold.
So I want to ask you this real quick, man.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy, is
Yes,
he
sir.
is he an underrated quarterback in your opinion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the reason I'm saying that is because you see what the talking heads are saying against him. The narrative against him is look at the talent he has. He has George Kittle. He has Deebo Samuel. He has Brandon Ayuk. He has Christian McCaffrey. He has Trent Williams, one of the best offensive lines in the league, right? That's all true. I mean, he does have, most talented teams, but are you supposed to fault him for who he's playing with? I mean, did we fault Patrick Mahomes for having Tyreek Hill, who's having an MVP season in Miami, and Travis Kelce on the roster at the same time? No, we just kept harping about the greatness of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid's being offensive genius, right? I mean, ultimately, you play with who you have. You know, what I mean, are we going to fault Joe Montana for playing with the greatest wide receiver of all time in Jerry Rice? Right? I mean, are we going to fall? You see where I'm going here, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can't fault a quarterback for having the talent, and the talent makes a team. No coach can win without star players, right? I mean, you can look at the NBA, you can look at the NFL. Look at Bill Belichick without Tom Brady. Tell me how he's doing, right? I mean, it's
Exactly. Yeah.
ultimately right, and I mean that's kind of my point. I think Brock Purdy is absolutely underrated because of the fact that no one's giving the credit of what he's doing. Now, obviously, the flip side of the counter argument. Oh, the Niners made a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo looked great, back in 2019. Oh yeah, that's fine. But Jimmy Garoppolo in 2019, I mean, you look at his air yards versus his yards after catch. Even though Brock Purdy makes a lot of the plays after catch, Brock Purdy has more air yards than I want to say less yards after catch than the last five MVPs outside of Lamar Jackson back in 2019. I believe 48% of Brock Purdy's passes come from after catch, yards after catch. The only MVP in the last 5 years who's had that same kind of who's had that same percentage of yards after catch is Lamar Jackson at 43% yards after catch, right? But Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back MVPs, they had over 50% of their passes come from YAC, yards after catch, right? So yeah, you're saying dink and dunk. You're saying that yeah, dink and dunk is one area of. I'll give you an example. I saw Tom Brady play live at Soldier Field back in 2018 during my last season when I played arena. I saw Tom Brady basically play against the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. That was his last season of winning a Super Bowl with the Patriots for his actual final season the following year, and then he went to Tampa Bay the year after. He won his last Super Bowl with Tampa Bay, right? So Tom Brady was just dinking and dunking to Julian Edelman, to Danny Amendola, to Sony Michel, to James White. He's just Gronk. That's. And are we going to say Tom Brady's a lesser quarterback because of that? No, right? I think too much of this emphasis on big plays and having a strong arm skirted kind of our perception or blurred our perception, right? It's really kind of it's made it very difficult for us to really assess what good quarterbacking is, right? And I think Brock Purdy, he may not be the best talent-wise player on the Niners, but he is the best quarterback I have seen in the Niners in the last 20 years, bar none.
Yeah.
That's counting Colin Kaepernick. Okay, that's counting Colin Kaepernick. That's counting everyone. Alex Smith, all these guys. Multi-time Pro Bowlers. The reason I'm saying that is because when you see Brock, his touch, his ability to process the game, his IQ, his development, and his ability to make the play to win the game. That's pretty much what we're looking at. Yes, he lost 3 games without Trent Williams and Deebo when they're out. Correct, but he put the Niners in position to win one of those games against Cleveland. And it had Jake Moody made the kick, I mean, the Niners would be the number 1 seed right now. I mean, so essentially that's kind of, and that's the thing about football, right? Like one play can alter the course of the game. And regardless, the quarterback gets the lion's share of the credit or the blame for the team's either success or pitfalls, right? So you look at Brock Purdy, you look at the coaching. Obviously, the coaching has helped him a lot. The blocking scheme of Kyle Shanahan's offense has helped him a lot. But I think Brock Purdy, being the playmaker and being the great quarterback that he is, he definitely deserves to be where he is in the MVP race. He's my current choice for MVP. Granted, he continues his production down the stretch. I don't see any reason to change that.
Yeah, those are great points, man. And, still his accuracy, I mean, you can't touch his accuracy. That guy is, pinpoint.
70.8% accuracy, leading the league in passer rating. Only, I think, 2 or 3 touchdowns behind, the league leaders in touchdown passes. I mean, he's 23 touchdowns passing on the year, the 6 picks in 12 games. If he keeps up at this pace, he's going to set the franchise record. He's on pace to set the 49ers franchise record for passing yards, to be either tie or get close to the franchise record in passing touchdowns. as well as passing completion percentage and passer rating. All in this season, while en route to leading the Sword 49ers to the number one seed. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely
And
phenomenal.
sorry, and one more thing. I want to make this point. The reason why I think Brock is getting so much unfair criticism outside of kind of the quote unquote dink and dunk offense is because of his draft position. If Brock Purdy was a first round pick, I think we wouldn't be having this conversation about whether or not he should be the MVP. But because of his draft position, he wasn't drafted in the top, 10 or top, 32 picks, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Lamar Jackson, right? Like a Josh, whatever, right? Josh Allen, or what have you, right? So we're not basically saying, this guy deserves to be the MVP. The reason we're underrating him is because he was Mr. Relevant. And we've never seen Mr. Relevant do this before. We've never seen Mr. Relevant be the league leader in anything, let alone leading a team to, a playoff berth. And I mean, his back-to-back seasons, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's very true, man. So, going into the playoffs, do you see any trouble that San Francisco could be facing from the AFC?
Absolutely. I think one of the key kind of areas, the only team which really scares me outside of Miami with Tyreek Hill and the MVP season that he's having is Baltimore, the Ravens. And shout out to Coach Dub, right? My college coach. I see you, coach, right? I struggle with mobile quarterbacks, right? Lamar Jackson is the definition of a dual threat quarterback. And, obviously we lost Lamar Jackson when we made the Super Bowl back in 2019. This year looks like it's a different season for Baltimore. I do see the matchup problems that they potentially possess with the Odell Beckham Jr. However, no, with this said, I'll say this. They lost Mark Andrews. He's out, right? They have Odell Beckham Jr., right? So that's kind of like their main kind of receiving. Well, he's not even their main receiving threat at this point, right? But they do have some playmakers, right? On the receiving, I think J.K. Dobbins and a few others maybe. But I think the Baltimore Ravens present the biggest matchup problems because of that dual threat quarterback. Jalen Hurts last year, the designed runs, you're not seeing that this year because of the fact that the offensive coordinator Shane Steichen isn't there anymore in Philadelphia. He's on Indianapolis and he's leading them to a potential playoff berth. But you see kind of how, the Eagles are struggling right now, kind of that lack of offensive creativity. And the Niners defense is just on their level. So actually, I mean, I don't know if Baltimore will beat them. I mean, they actually play in a few weeks. So it's going to be interesting to see how that could be a potential Super Bowl matchup. People basically all like the talk show hosts and all like ESPN, Fox Sports, what I've been seeing is that everyone has either Niners number 1 and Baltimore number 2, right? So, I mean, we'll see how that matchup was. It was a Super Bowl matchup 10, 11 years ago. So I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that game shapes out, to see how that quote unquote is a Super Bowl preview could potentially shape out, because I want to see how the Niners can go up against a fully healthy Lamar Jackson. And if they're able to contain him and they're able to, get after him and, make it difficult, then that will definitely help, because obviously mobile quarterbacks can kill defenses. It's a different league now, right? You've seen Patrick Mahomes, even though he's an all-time great passer, make plays with his feet. You've seen Jalen Hurts last year make plays with his feet, right? You've not seen that so much this year. You've seen Lamar Jackson do that this year, make those plays with his feet, being a dynamic playmaker. You've even seen Brock make some, every now and then. His athleticism is a little bit underrated, back to your earlier question. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the elements that makes Baltimore a very difficult matchup. But I'm excited to see that matchup in a few weeks, and I hope the Niners, can prove, how well they are against, or how well they can play up against those big boys and those quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. But, man, nobody's really talking about the Dolphins, though.
Well, that's the point. And, to your point, the reason why is because of the competition. Same reason why they're not talking about the Cowboys. The Cowboys haven't played that many teams over 500. Same with Miami. Miami maybe has like 1 or 2 wins against teams over 500. The teams they played over 500, they've lost to Kansas City 14-21. They got blown out by the Bills, right? And I forgot who the other team was who they played, but they lost the third game too. But they will have their opportunity. They do play the Cowboys in a few weeks, and they also play a few other teams, who are over 500 down the stretch. We'll see how good this team is. But, I mean, that offense, like to your point, I mean, they are just so explosive. That's right. What the Niners kind of capitalize on the explosive offense with the playmakers like a Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, right? Though that explosive offense is really what makes the Niners so dangerous and difficult to scheme for. That's what makes Miami so difficult to scheme for. But I think I don't see any reason why Miami can't win a playoff game. You saw them go up into Buffalo last season with Skylar Thompson at quarterback, and they play the Bills down the wire. So, I mean, they can definitely win a playoff game. The question is, because they actually do play Baltimore at some point, I believe in a few weeks too. They play the Baltimore Ravens and that could basically be the number one seed because I don't think Kansas City is going to be number one seed for the first time in 6 years in the AFC. So if Kansas City is not the number one seed, you have Baltimore and Miami. It's going to be one of those two teams basically take it, right? If the Miami Dolphins can prove that that they can beat the Baltimore Ravens, right, that will basically be a humongous statement, just like the Niners' big statement that they had against Philadelphia on Sunday, right? Going in to play the current number one seed, beating them before the playoffs start, it builds momentum, and you can definitely see Miami build off that momentum and make a deep playoff run.
So let's switch back to the NFC, man. Back over to my side of the states.
Your side or my side? Who's the top dog? That's fine.
Now, you made the prediction at the beginning of the season that it was going to be New Orleans, the Panthers, and the Falcons in third place.
Oh, gosh. Don't fault me for my lack of NFC South awareness. I apologize. You know this much better than I do. I mean, and yeah, go ahead and if you want to make your point or ask your question, because I was going to actually just bring up my point about the Falcons because it has been remarkable how well they've played, and just Bijan Robinson having the rookie season he's having, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal to see what impact one player can have on the most team-oriented game in pro sports. I mean, Bijan Robinson he's a franchise. He is the franchise right now. We talked about earlier in the season Desmond Ridder and how we thought he was going to progress and develop, but we didn't really understand how good Bijan Robinson was, and what impact he would have. And that is your franchise player. He is the the Christian McCaffrey impact that Christian has had, for the Niners. It is just incredible to see what Bijan Robinson has brought to the Falcons.
Absolutely, and you know who he reminds me of, man? Barry Sanders.
Oh, I watched the Barry documentary on Prime, and that was phenomenal. And he does because of his ability. What did I just tell you earlier about tackling guys in space?
Yeah.
Who makes the guys miss most in space? Barry Sanders, right? Bijan Robinson is exactly that same kind of player where he's able to move so well laterally because his center of gravity is so low. He doesn't have to worry about, going between the tackles, making men miss, and all that stuff. You saw Hufanga, how he tore his was it Achilles or ACL for his ACL, just trying to go up against guys who try to tackle the dude in space, right? So essentially, Bijan Robinson, that is literally what he excels at, and that's what makes the Falcons so dangerous. I think they are going to continue this trend and win the NFC South. And grab this year, it's a great season, to be a Falcons fan. To see this young rebuilding team kind of build. On this momentum. And we're seeing a lot of young teams like the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons do this. And it's really remarkable to see this emergence. The Green Bay Packers are the youngest team in the NFL with an average roster age of 25 and a half. The Falcons are right up there, I think around 26 or 27 and a half. So it's a great time to be a fan, and, just lots of forward to if they can continue building on this.
Yeah, I can see us finishing first in our division, right? But going into the playoffs, I don't know if we're going to win a game or not. But, all season, man, the defense has kept us in these games and has actually helped us win these games as well.
Absolutely. And I think there was one funny thing I saw. I think, but John, your offensive line has not helped, honestly. But Bijan Robinson has made the most out of it. I think there was one where he was running out the end zone and he ends up running with the ball. Then I think who was it? The Jets. Yeah, the Jets basically pushed the offensive lineman back, and Bijan ran to the dude's backside. And then he fell over in the end zone.
Right.
So there's definitely opportunities, but whether or not you win a game, this season has been definitely unexpected. Because I'm not sure if anyone really predicted the Falcons to be NFC South champions, at the beginning of the season. So it's really good. Just like how everyone predicted the AFC was going to continue their dominance, at the beginning of the season. AFC has not looked like anywhere near what we thought they would be. Obviously you do have Baltimore and you do have, Miami, but you see Kansas City with their issues. You see Buffalo basically being up and down. You see all these kind of quote unquote powers. You see the Bengals, right, without Joe Burrow, even though they're able to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. You see the Jaguars, right? But you do have the emergence of the Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryans coming from the Niners, his first year as head coach in the NFL with a CJ Stroud, right? There's a lot of great narratives, a lot of great young talent, great young teams who are basically emerging, and the Falcons are one of them.
Yeah. And man, I don't care who the quarterback is for the Falcons. You still need play calling. The play calling it still needs to be improved. Why is Arthur Smith still the offensive coordinator? I don't know, man.
Let me ask you this question. If Deion Sanders is available in the offseason, would you take him?
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yes. Dirty Birds.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I mean,
no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, because Deion loves being with kids. He loves building men, making boys men. That's his thing. Jim Harbaugh could potentially be targeted by the Bears, so that might be a name to watch out for because you've seen what he's doing with Michigan this year. It's phenomenal how well he's made that team where he can step away for 3 games and they end up winning their games against Ohio State at Ohio State. I mean, so that's or actually it was at Michigan, but still, I mean that there was a lot of potential coaching candidates who are basically going to be prime candidates for the NFL coaching jobs. I think Arthur Smith even makes the playoffs. Unfortunately, if he does make the playoffs, he that will buy him enough goodwill, in my opinion, with Arthur Blank to extend him for one more year. So it's a blessing and a curse, right? You basically make the playoffs, but I think it'll only buy him that one more season. If they buy him that one more season, then maybe hopefully Arthur Blank steps in and says, "Hey, you need to delegate your play calling duties," because that was something he did with a few other not him, but other owners have done in the past with basically teams where their offenses are struggling. They're basically able to step in and kind of not necessarily kind of jump over the red tape, but make sure that the coaches know what's going on. So
yeah, a few weeks ago though, what Deion said really, really got me. He said he wants both of his sons to go to Atlanta.
Oof, that'd be nice.
Yeah, it would. It would.
So maybe you never know, right?
True. All right. So what do you think about this coming weekend?
This coming weekend, I only have one game on my calendar circled, and that is the Cowboys and the Eagles. And this week only, I am a Cowboys fan for one reason only. For my San Francisco 49ers. You will never hear me say that again on this podcast, unless it benefits the Niners like it will this weekend. So,
I mean, I'm still a Cowboy hater. I'm going for the Eagles, man.
No. We want for the Cowboys because we want Niners to be number one in the NFC. And I think the Cowboys have an actual chance to do it. Now, do I think the Eagles are just going to lay down for 2 weeks straight? See, that's the real question, right? I mean, the Eagles are still the number one team in the NFC. They have a great defense. They're still a great team, but I mean, their defense has shown to be susceptible. And the Dallas Cowboys did put up over 400 yards against the Eagles last time they played. The Dallas Cowboys have beaten the Seahawks, which is the first team I think they beat with a winning record in some time. But also Cowboys are 14-0 at home, so they're undefeated at home for 14 straight games. And like I said, 14 straight regular season games. They lost to the Niners in the postseason at home 2 years ago. But yeah, anyways, the Cowboys up against the Eagles. I think Dak can definitely. Since the Cowboys have been clicking on all cylinders, Dak is right there in the MVP candidate race with Brock Purdy. That's my dream matchup to see the Niners and the Cowboys make it back in the NFC Championship game because I've always wanted that matchup for all the marbles. And I hope whoever wins that game. I mean, I know who's going to win that game, but I hope whoever comes out the winner of that game ends up kind of taking it all, right? So, yeah, I'm picking the Cowboys this weekend. I'm going to pick them to win over the Eagles 23-20. They're favored by 3.5, but I think they won't cover. I think it's going to be a 3-point margin.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very close, but, I'm taking the Eagles on this one. So I'm going to say 21-24.
21-24. Yeah, see, 3 point. I mean, we're both in the same boat. It's going to come down to the wire. Whoever has the ball last, and whoever possesses the ball last is basically gonna win the game. That's what I think.
Cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next week with a recap of this coming Sunday. Take care.
Take care.